Imagine building a billion-dollar company with your own hands, becoming one of the most respected tech innovators in the country, only to be treated like a criminal in your own community because of the color of your skin. Officer James Wilson thought he was just conducting another routine traffic stop when he pulled over the sleek Tesla that morning. He had no idea the man behind the wheel was Howard Blackwell, CEO of Neurasync Technologies, and he certainly had no idea that his bigotry was about to cost him everything. Some say power corrupts. But what happens when someone who's been abusing their power meets someone with even greater power? What happens when years of unchecked racial profiling collide with the resources and determination of a man who's spent his life overcoming obstacles? Howard Blackwell was used to breaking barriers in the tech world. Now he's about to break something else, a corrupt system that's protected Officer Wilson for 15 years. Sometimes justice comes from unexpected places. Sometimes karma arrives in a luxury car with a custom suit and the kind of influence that can't be intimidated by a badge. This is the story of a racist cop's worst traffic stop and the beginning of his final countdown. The morning sun casts long shadows across the pristine streets of Westlake Heights. Officer James Wilson adjusts his aviator sunglasses as he pulls his patrol car to the curb. At 42, James has spent 15 years on the force, most of those years making a name for himself in this affluent neighborhood. Another day, protecting the good people, he mutters to himself, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror. His tight crew cut and perfectly pressed uniform project the image of authority he's cultivated over the years. James prides himself on knowing who belongs in Westlake Heights and who doesn't. It's a sixth sense he's developed, or so he tells himself. His radio crackles. All units, reminder about the community meeting next Tuesday. Chief wants full attendance. James acknowledges with a quick copy that, before setting up his speed trap at the corner of Maple and Westlake Drive. This particular spot has been productive for him, a stretch of road where the speed limit suddenly drops from 45 to 30. James has written more tickets here than anywhere else in his jurisdiction. 20 minutes pass before a sleek, midnight blue Tesla Model S catches his attention. The car isn't speeding, in fact, it's precisely at the limit, but something about it nags at James. The windows are tinted within legal limits, but just dark enough that he can't clearly make out the driver. Let's see who's behind the wheel, James says to himself, pulling out and following the Tesla for several blocks. Inside the Tesla, Howard Blackwell is lost in thought about his upcoming board meeting. At 38, Howard has built Neurasync Technologies from a startup in his garage to a $2.8 billion company, employing over 500 people. Today marks the 5th anniversary of their flagship product launch, and Howard is mentally rehearsing his presentation to investors. The blue and red lights flashing in his rearview mirror snap him back to reality. Howard checks his speedometer and frowns. He wasn't speeding. He signals and pulls over smoothly, already reaching for his wallet as the officer approaches. Howard lowers his window. "Good morning, officer. Is there a problem?" James leans down slightly, surprise momentarily crossing his face when he sees Howard, an impeccably dressed black man in a custom suit. The surprise quickly morphs into suspicion. "License and registration," James demands, skipping any pleasantries. "Of course," Howard says calmly, handing over his documentation. "May I ask why I was pulled over?" "I'm certain I wasn't speeding." James ignores the question, studying Howard's license with exaggerated scrutiny. "This your car, Mr. Blackwell?" "Yes, it is," Howard replies, maintaining his composure despite the officer's tone. "And how long have you owned it?" "About 16 months now." James looks from the license to Howard and back again. "You mind telling me what you're doing in this neighborhood?" Howard's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He's been through this before. "I'm on my way to my office." Neurasync headquarters is just off Westlake Boulevard. "Neurasync," James repeats, skepticism evident in his voice. "And what do you do there?" "I'm the founder and CEO." James doesn't bother hiding his disbelief. "CEO, huh? That's quite impressive." His tone suggests he thinks it's anything but truthful. "Step out of the vehicle, please." "Officer, I haven't committed any traffic violation," Howard says, his voice remaining steady. "I have an important meeting in 20 minutes. Is this really necessary?" "Step out of the vehicle, sir," James repeats, his hand now resting on his holster, a subtle but clear threat. "Now." Howard takes a deep breath and complies, stepping out with deliberate movements. He stands a few inches taller than James, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the officer's uniform. Stand by the hood, please, James instructs, now pulling out his radio. Dispatch, I need to run a plate. He reads off the Tesla's license plate while watching Howard with suspicious eyes. After confirming the vehicle belongs to Howard, James still isn't satisfied. Pop the trunk. Officer Wilson, Howard says, reading the name tag. I understand you're doing your job, but this is beginning to feel like harassment. The car is registered to me, as you've confirmed. I wasn't speeding or breaking any traffic laws. What's the actual reason for this stop? James's face hardens. You seem pretty anxious to get going. Something in that trunk you don't want me to see. Nothing except my laptop bag and maybe a gym duffel, Howard replies. But again, what is your reasonable suspicion for searching my vehicle? I don't need to explain myself to you, James snaps. Open the trunk or I'll consider that probable cause. Howard knows his rights are being violated, but he also knows the danger of escalating a situation with someone who has both a weapon and the authority to use it. He presses the key fob, and the Tesla's trunk opens smoothly. James roughly pushes past Howard to inspect the trunk's contents. As Howard predicted, there's only a leather laptop bag, a gym duffel, and a small emergency kit. James opens the bags anyway, pawing through Howard's belongings. What exactly are you looking for, Officer Wilson? Howard asks, his patience wearing thin. Just making sure everything's in order, James mutters, clearly disappointed at finding nothing incriminating. He zips the bags closed and slams the trunk. We've had some reports of drug activity in the area. Nice cars like this sometimes get used for deliveries. Howard stares at him incredulously. Are you suggesting I'm a drug dealer because I drive a Tesla? I'm not suggesting anything, James says with a smirk. Just doing my job. Though I have to wonder how someone like you affords a car like this. Someone like me? Howard repeats, his voice dropping dangerously low. What exactly do you mean by that? James realizes he's on thin ice but doesn't back down. Look, Mr. CEO, I've been an officer in this district for 15 years. I know everyone who's anyone around here, and I've never heard of you or your, what was it? Neurosomething. Neurosync Technologies, Howard corrects him. We're the company that developed the neural interface systems now used in most modern prosthetics. Perhaps you've been too busy pulling over innocent drivers to read the business section of the newspaper. James's face flushes with anger. Watch your tone. I can still take you in for disrespecting an officer. A passing car slows down, the driver watching the confrontation with concern. James notices and straightens up, suddenly aware they have an audience. You're free to go, he says curtly, thrusting Howard's license and registration back at him. But I suggest you drive more carefully in this neighborhood. I was driving perfectly legally, and we both know it, Howard says, accepting his documents. Officer Wilson, what's your badge number? James's eyes narrow. You planning to file a complaint? Good luck with that. Badge number 4572. James Wilson. Been on the force 15 years without a single sustained complaint. The lie comes easily to his lips. I'm sure that's the case, Howard replies, his tone making it clear he doesn't believe it for a second. Have a good day, Officer Wilson. Howard gets back into his Tesla, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as he pulls away. In his rearview mirror, he can see James watching him go, the officer's posture radiating hostility. As Howard drives toward his office, the encounter replays in his mind. It's not the first time he's been profiled, but something about Officer Wilson's arrogance, his blatant disregard for proper procedure, strikes a nerve. Howard has worked too hard, overcome too many obstacles, to be treated like a criminal in a city where his company employs hundreds of people. His phone rings through the car's speaker system. It's his executive assistant, Zoe. Howard, the investors are gathering in the conference room. Are you close? Howard takes a steadying breath. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Sorry, I got held up. Everything okay? You sound tense. Howard considers sharing what just happened but decides against it. I'm fine. Just another reminder that some things haven't changed as much as we'd like to think they have. Zoe, who has worked with Howard for 6 years, immediately understands. Another driving while black incident? You got it. I'll tell you about it later. For now, let's focus on the meeting. As Howard pulls into his reserved parking space at the gleaming Neurosync headquarters, he tries to push the incident from his mind. Today is important. 5 years of groundbreaking work to celebrate, new innovations to unveil. He shouldn't let one racist cop ruin this milestone. But as he gathers his materials from the trunk that Officer Wilson had so thoroughly searched, Howard finds himself unable to let go. The humiliation, the powerlessness, the implied criminality, all because of the color of his skin. James Wilson's smug face and badge number 4572 burn in Howard's memory. Something needs to be done about officers like him. And perhaps, Howard thinks as he straightens his tie and heads into the building, he's finally in a position to do something about it. Inside the Neurosync lobby, employees greet Howard with respect and admiration. The contrast between this treatment and what just transpired on the roadside couldn't be more stark. Here, he is Howard Blackwell, visionary CEO. Out there, to Officer Wilson, he was just another black man who didn't belong. As Howard steps into the elevator, his resolve hardens. Officer James Wilson has no idea who he just profiled, but he's going to find out. The elevator doors close, carrying Howard upward to his meeting. But his mind is already racing ahead to what comes next, after the investors leave, after the celebrations conclude. Justice, Howard decides, is long overdue for Officer James Wilson. And Howard Blackwell might be just the man to deliver it. 3 days after the confrontation with Officer Wilson, Howard sits in his spacious corner office, staring at his computer screen instead of reviewing quarterly projections. The encounter has refused to leave his mind, eating away at his concentration. He's faced discrimination before, but something about Wilson's smugness, the casual cruelty, has lodged under his skin like a splinter. Howard, you wanted to see me. Zoe stands in the doorway, tablet in hand. Howard looks up, gesturing for her to come in. Close the door, please. Zoe raises an eyebrow, but complies. In 6 years as his executive assistant, she's learned to read his moods. Still thinking about that cop? I can't let it go, Howard admits, leaning back in his chair. It's not just about me. If he's treating a CEO in a suit this way, imagine how he handles other black people in less privileged positions. Zoe nods, taking a seat across from him. What are you thinking? Howard turns his monitor toward her. I've been doing some research. Officer James Wilson, badge number 4572, Westlake Heights Police Department. 15 years on the force. His finger taps against his desk rhythmically. And get this, he wasn't lying about having no sustained complaints. That's surprising, Zoe replies. Not really, Howard counters, clicking to another screen. Because there have been 27 complaints filed against him in the past decade. 27. None sustained. Zoe's eyes widen. How is that possible? That's what I wanted to know. Howard clicks again, revealing public records he's managed to access. 19 of those complaints were filed by people of color. Most were dismissed for lack of evidence or insufficient cause. The rest were quietly settled with non-disclosure agreements. Howard stands, unable to contain his restless energy. I've spent the last 2 days talking to community advocacy groups. Wilson has a reputation. He specifically targets black professionals driving high-end vehicles. It's like a personal crusade for him. He can't stand seeing successful black people in his neighborhood. That's disgusting, Zoe murmurs. But if the department keeps protecting him, that's the thing, Howard interrupts, a glint of determination in his eyes. I've discovered something interesting. Officer Wilson is up for promotion next month. Sergeant Wilson has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? The sarcasm in his voice is palpable. He pulls up another document. The promotion board meets in 3 weeks. And guess who sits on that board? Commissioner Diane Foster. Zoe leans forward. That name sounds familiar. It should. She joined our company's board of directors last year. Remember the community outreach initiative? She was very impressed with our neural interface work for veterans. Understanding dawns on Zoe's face. So Commissioner Foster works with you. Exactly. Howard's expression is grim but satisfied. But there's more. I reached out to the owner of that convenience store near where Wilson pulled me over. They have security cameras covering part of the street. I asked if they'd check their footage from that morning. Howard opens an email and turns the screen back toward Zoe. They sent this an hour ago. The video is grainy but clear enough. It shows Howard's Tesla driving perfectly legally, Officer Wilson's patrol car pulling out to follow the traffic stop. Though there's no audio, the body language tells the story. Wilson's aggressive posture, the unnecessary search, Howard's contained frustration. This is damning, Zoe says quietly. It's a start, Howard agrees. But I wanted to know if I was an isolated incident or part of a pattern. So I posted anonymously in some local business forums, asking if other black professionals had similar experiences with Westlake Heights PD. He opens his email again, scrolling through dozens of messages. The responses came flooding in. Not just about Wilson, though he features prominently, but about systemic issues in the department. Howard clicks on one message from a Dr. Thomas Reynolds, a neurosurgeon at Westlake Memorial. Listen to this. Officer Wilson pulled me over 3 times in 2 months. Each time he claims something different. Suspected taillight out, driving too slow, failure to signal properly. Each time he searched my car. The 3rd time, he made me late for an emergency surgery. He clicks another from Professor Alicia Washington at Westlake University. Wilson followed me home one evening, waited until I parked in my driveway, then approached to ask if I belonged in the neighborhood. When I said I'd lived there for 8 years, he demanded proof of residence. I had to show him mail with my name on it. Howard continues, opening message after message. There's a pattern here, Zoe. A clear, undeniable pattern of harassment targeting successful black professionals. And it goes beyond Wilson. It's ingrained in departmental culture. Zoe sits quietly for a moment, absorbing it all. So what's your plan? Talk to Commissioner Foster. Howard smiles, but there's no warmth in it. Eventually. But first, I want to build an ironclad case. I've invited some of Wilson's victims to meet here tomorrow evening after hours. Dr. Reynolds, Professor Washington, Attorney Jamal Brooks, and 3 others. People whose professional standing makes them unimpeachable witnesses. He pulls up another document, a formal-looking application. And look what I found on the police department's website. Wilson's promotion application includes a personal statement. Let me read you part of it. My dedication to the Westlake Heights community has been unwavering. I believe in protecting our neighborhoods from outside influences that might disrupt the peace and security our residents deserve. Outside influences. Zoe repeats, disgusted. That's barely coded language. Exactly, Howard says, closing the document. He's not even trying to hide his prejudice. He genuinely believes people like me, Dr. Reynolds, and Professor Washington are outside influences in our own community. Howard's phone buzzes with a notification. He glances at it, then looks up at Zoe with renewed purpose. That's from my contact at City Hall. Wilson's personnel file just came through. He opens the file, scanning quickly. Interesting. Before joining Westlake Heights PD, Wilson was asked to resign from his previous position in Riverdale. No official reason given, but there's a note about community relations concerns. Zoe leans back, impressed despite herself. You've done all this research in just 3 days? When something matters, you make time, Howard says simply. He closes his laptop with finality. Now I need you to do something for me. Contact Commissioner Foster's office. Tell them I'd like to meet with her, not as a board member of my company, but as a concerned citizen of Westlake Heights. Don't give details, just say it's a matter of community importance. When you want this meeting? After I've met with the others. Let's say early next week. Howard stands, signaling the end of their conversation. And Zoe? Keep this between us for now. The fewer people who know, the better. As Zoe leaves his office, Howard walks to the window overlooking the city. In the distance, he can see the police headquarters, its flag waving in the breeze. His reflection stares back at him from the glass, successful, powerful, respected. Yet to Officer Wilson, he was just another black man who didn't belong. Not for long, Howard murmurs to himself. The following evening, Howard's private conference room hosts an unusual gathering. 6 black professionals sit around the polished table, each with their own story about Officer James Wilson. Dr. Thomas Reynolds, 45, chief of neurosurgery at Westlake Memorial, speaks first. His voice is measured, controlled, but the anger beneath is palpable. The 3rd time he pulled me over, I was rushing to an emergency craniotomy. A 19-year-old kid with a brain bleed. I explained the situation, showed him my hospital ID, even offered to let him escort me there if he was concerned. He still spent 15 minutes searching my car while that kid waited for surgery. Professor Alicia Washington, 52, Department Chair of African American Studies at Westlake University, nods in grim recognition. He stopped me 7 times in 3 years. Always when I'm driving my husband's Mercedes. Never when I'm in my Honda. Jamal Brooks, 41, founding partner at Brooks and Hernandez Law, adds, "What strikes me is the pattern. It's always the same approach he follows for a while, waiting for any minor mistake. When there isn't one, he invents a reason. You seem to be driving erratically. Your tint looks too dark." Then the questions, "Is this your car? What brings you to this neighborhood?" As if we couldn't possibly live or work here. Howard listens intently as each person shares their experience. The stories are disturbingly similar. The targeting, the disbelief that they belonged in Westlake Heights, the searches, the subtle and not-so-subtle humiliations. Gabrielle Winters, 39, vice president at First National Bank, speaks last. "What bothers me most is that I never filed a complaint. I told myself it wasn't worth the hassle, that nothing would come of it anyway." She looks around the room, shame mixed with determination on her face. "I should have. We all should have. Every single time." Howard nods, understanding her regret. "That's why we're here now. Together, we can make a difference." He opens a folder, revealing copies of Wilson's record. "I've done some digging. Wilson has 27 complaints against him, none sustained. He's currently up for promotion to sergeant." The news is met with sounds of disbelief and anger. How is that possible? Dr. Reynolds demands. 27 complaints, and he's being promoted? Because the system works exactly as it was designed to, Professor Washington says quietly. To protect its own, Howard activates the screen behind him, displaying the security footage of his own encounter with Wilson. "This time, we have evidence. And not just this, we have our collective professional standing, our stories, and something Wilson doesn't expect." "What's that?" Jamal Brooks asks. "Access," Howard replies simply. "I serve on the board with Police Commissioner Diane Foster. She respects me, values my input on community matters. More importantly, she values the substantial financial support my company provides to police initiatives." He looks around the room, making eye contact with each person. "I have a meeting with her on Monday. I'm going to show her this footage, share our stories, and make it clear that Wilson's behavior is not just a personal failing. It's reflective of a departmental culture that needs changing." "And if she stonewalls you?" Gabrielle asks, skepticism evident in her voice. Howard smiles thinly. "Then I'll remind her that next month, the City Council votes on the police department's budget request. A budget that includes substantial funding for new technology they hope my company will help develop. I'll also mention that I'm close friends with several council members and the mayor." The room falls silent as his words sink in. "You'd use your position like that?" Dr. Reynolds asks finally. In a heartbeat, Howard confirms without hesitation. Wilson has abused his position of authority for years. It's time someone with authority of a different kind stood up to him. He pauses, looking around a room. "But I need your help. I need each of you to formally document your experiences, to be willing to speak to Commissioner Foster if necessary." One by one, they agree. As they discuss logistics, Howard's phone buzzes. He glances at it, a message from his investigator with more information on Wilson. "There's something else you should know," Howard tells the group, reading the message. "My investigator just found out that Wilson is scheduled to lead the department's upcoming community relations workshop for new officers next month. He's literally training the next generation of police officers in his methods." The irony isn't lost on anyone in the room. "This ends now," Howard says with quiet determination. Wilson doesn't know it yet, but his career in law enforcement is about to come to an abrupt conclusion. As the meeting winds down and his guests prepare to leave, Howard receives another message, confirmation of his Monday appointment with Commissioner Foster. He feels a grim satisfaction as he reads it. The wheels are in motion now, an unstoppable force of accountability heading straight for Officer James Wilson. Outside, night has fallen over Westlake Heights. Somewhere in the darkness, Officer Wilson patrols the streets, unaware that his days of harassment and discrimination are numbered. The power dynamic he's exploited for years is about to be dramatically reversed. Howard stands at the window again, watching his new allies drive away. For years, Wilson has judged them solely by the color of their skin. Soon, he'll be judged by the content of his character and found severely wanting. Monday, Howard whispers to himself. On Monday, everything changes, and somewhere across town, Officer James Wilson continues his patrol, blissfully unaware that his career is speeding toward a collision from which it will never recover. Monday morning arrives with a sense of inevitability. The Westlake Heights Police Department headquarters bustles with its usual activity as Howard Blackwell walks through the front entrance, briefcase in hand. The officer at the reception desk looks up with mild surprise at his tailored suit and confident demeanor. "I have an appointment with Commissioner Foster," Howard states calmly. "Your name, sir?" "Howard Blackwell, CEO of Neurosync Technologies." Recognition flickers in the officer's eyes. Neurosync is the largest employer in the county. "Of course, Mr. Blackwell. The commissioner is expecting you." Howard is escorted to the 5th floor, where Commissioner Diane Foster's office occupies the corner position. At 56, Foster has built a reputation as a no-nonsense leader who prides herself on running a professional department. Her handshake is firm as she welcomes Howard. "This is an unexpected pleasure," she says, gesturing toward a chair. "Though your assistant was rather mysterious about the purpose of this meeting. I appreciate you making time, Commissioner," Howard replies, setting his briefcase on her desk. "What I'm about to share with you requires your immediate attention." For the next 15 minutes, Howard methodically presents his case against Officer Wilson, the video footage, the testimonials, the pattern of complaints, the documented history. Commissioner Foster's expression grows increasingly grave. "These are serious allegations, Mr. Blackwell." "Not allegations. Evidence," Howard corrects firmly. 27 complaints, Commissioner. All dismissed. All following the same pattern. Foster leans back, her brow furrowed. "I'm disturbed by what you've shown me. I'll need to review Officer Wilson's record thoroughly." "With respect, Commissioner, this goes beyond an internal review," Howard counters. "This is about public trust. This is about accountability." Before Foster can respond, her intercom buzzes. "Commissioner, Officer Wilson is here for his performance review as scheduled." A look passes between Howard and Foster. "Perfect timing," Howard says quietly. Foster studies him for a moment before pressing the intercom. "Send him in." The door opens, and Officer James Wilson steps into the office. His uniform crisp, his posture straight. The confident smile on his face freezes when he sees Howard sitting there. "Commissioner, I didn't realize you were in a meeting," Wilson says, his eyes darting between them. "Officer Wilson," Foster says, her voice deliberately neutral. "I believe you've met Mr. Blackwell before." Wilson's Adam's apple bobs as he swallows. "Yes, ma'am. I conducted a routine traffic stop last week." "Routine?" Howard echoes. "Is this what you consider routine, Officer Wilson?" Howard presses a button on his laptop, and the security footage begins playing on the large screen on Foster's wall. Wilson watches, his face draining of color as his actions are displayed for his superior to see. "That's not the full context," Wilson stammers when the video ends. "I think it is," Howard says coldly. "And you should know I'm not alone." The door opens again, and Dr. Reynolds, Professor Washington, and Jamal Brooks enter. Wilson's eyes widen in recognition. He's harassed each of them multiple times. "These respected community members have all experienced your routine traffic stops," Howard explains. "They've all filed complaints that mysteriously went nowhere." Commissioner Foster stands, her expression thunderous. "Officer Wilson, surrender your badge and weapon immediately." "What? You can't. This is just one incident." Wilson protests. "No," Foster counters. "According to our records, this is the 28th incident. But it's the first with irrefutable evidence and witnesses willing to testify publicly." She extends her hand. "Badge and gone. Now." Wilson looks around desperately, seeing no sympathy in any face. Slowly mechanical, he unpins his badge and unholsters his weapon, placing them on Foster's desk. "You're suspended without pay, pending an internal investigation and potential criminal charges for civil rights violations," Foster states formally. "Criminal charges?" Wilson whispers, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. "Yes," Howard confirms. "Mr. Brooks here has agreed to represent all of us in both criminal and civil proceedings. I believe the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division will be very interested in this case." Wilson's face contorts with anger. "You have no idea what it's like out there. I was protecting the community." "From what?" Dr. Reynolds asks quietly. "Neurosurgeons, university professors, attorneys, CEOs, or just black success in general?" Wilson has no answer. "You'll be escorted out by security," Foster tells him. "A formal announcement of your termination will be made this afternoon." As Wilson is led away, His shoulders slumped in defeat, Howard turns to Commissioner Foster. This is just the beginning of necessary changes, Commissioner. Foster nods grimly. I know, and I'll need your help. All of your help, she adds, looking at the others. The department requires a complete overhaul of training, oversight, and accountability. My company will fully support those efforts, Howard promises. But first, justice must be served. 3 months later, Howard stands before the city council, delivering a presentation on police reform. The changes have been swift and decisive. Wilson was formally charged with multiple civil rights violations. The police department has implemented body cameras and civilian oversight, and 5 other officers with similar records have been removed from duty. As Howard concludes his presentation to applause, he notices a familiar figure at the back of the room. James Wilson, now unemployed, his pension revoked, facing years of legal battles. Their eyes meet briefly. Howard doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. He simply holds Wilson's gaze, a silent reminder that actions have consequences, that power can shift, that justice, though delayed, has finally been served. Wilson is the first to look away. Outside the council chambers, Dr. Reynolds approaches Howard. I heard Wilson's been applying for security jobs throughout the state. No one will hire him. Howard nods. Actions have consequences. But so does redemption. He pulls out his phone, showing Reynolds a new initiative on the screen, a program funded by Neurosync to retrain former officers for community service roles. You'd give him another chance? Reynolds asked, surprised. Not me, Howard clarifies. But the program is open to anyone willing to acknowledge their mistakes and truly change. The application requires a public statement of accountability and demonstrated community service hours. He puts his phone away. Everyone deserves the opportunity to learn and grow, even Wilson. But that growth starts with accepting responsibility. As they walk together into the bright afternoon, Howard feels a weight lifting. The world hasn't changed overnight, but in this corner of it, accountability has prevailed. It's a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings are all we need to change the ending of an all-too-familiar story.